drinks in hand. The vibe is set. And once I start, don't eat too much because you got to stay fine. But come on, bestie, it's... Yeah! Hi, bestie. I missed you. What you doing? You want to go get your snack? You want to go get your real... Okay, you got it, okay. I'm currently uploading a new compilation on YouTube. So if you want my story times in long form, it's on my YouTube channel. Any other channel is just making money off me. They have been for years. That's why I decided to do it myself. So because of the last 2 major sales I had on the ebook, I have a lot of reviews, but I'm scared to like tell you guys if I want to be honest, because like I don't want y'all to think that, yeah. So this one won't be a review, but if you guys do want to hear the reviews, let me know. I'm just scared that you guys are going to think that I'm only telling reviews for sales, because people are already starting to say that. But the real ones, no. I was telling stories before the book, you know? Anyway, let's get on to the story. And for this story, I feel like I have to really be careful how I say it. Certain things that the person said, I probably can't say. So if some parts of the story probably don't make sense, just know it's because I'm trying to protect myself, because this is like huge. Anyway, so this submitter is from France, and she says that there is something wrong with the Eiffel Tower. There is something dark about the Eiffel Tower. This person says she has a gift, right? She can see things that others can't. She can feel things that others can't, especially from objects, right? So if there's some kind of energy or something attached to an object, she can see or feel it. And she claims that there are lots of evil, negative things attached to the Eiffel Tower. And she was raised in France, but she wasn't from there at first. She's from Africa. And her family ended up moving over there. But ever since she was younger, she had this gift. And so when she first moved to France, the Eiffel Tower, when her family made it like a trip, they went to visit it. It is nowhere near what she expected it to be when she used to see it in Africa, like the movies. She never got a chance to actually enjoy it, because the moment she got there, she felt it all. And she saw it all. She says that she sees spirits of people that have passed away at the Eiffel Tower, which is caused by the Eiffel Tower, but it looks like an accident, or, you know, this is all alleged. I don't want to get in trouble. And so their first trip there, obviously she was really excited, and then she saw and felt what she felt. She never wanted to go back, but her parents and stuff like that, like her family members, they love going over there. And she would always tell them, please do not go over there, please. There are things waiting for people that are weak spiritually to take advantage. She says she has watched, like, on the news, people passing away around there. And then later on, when she goes back and visit, she sees the energy of those people, and it's not good. They are, like, allegedly enslaved. And again, I wish I can, like, say some of the things that she said, but again, I don't want to get in trouble, and I know this video might get, like, suppressed because it has to do with the America country too. There's a lot of America things there. Damn! I think you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. So this story time is not much of a story, but more like a warning to anybody that is very excited to go to the Eiffel Tower and visit it. Make sure that you are spiritually protected. Make sure that you are a prayer warrior, because another pattern that she sees is that people go to visit, and even if they're not from France, they're like from other countries, they go and visit, and you know, everything's fine, it's beautiful, or whatever experience that they had, and they go back home and things start to go very wrong, but they never put those two connections together, because a lot of the times some of the things that she sees over there attach parts of themselves to you for like a really long time, because she says, from what she feels and stuff and that she knows in her spirit, these things have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. So at this point, they're like experts. And so this thing could attach to you for like damn near the rest of your life, and you never even made that connection that it was that, especially with like kids that goes and visits. She says that she like advises parents not to bring their kids because, you know, kids are pure. Kids are very much, that's why a lot of people use kids as sacrifice, allegedly, because kids are like the perfect kind of sacrifice, you know? And so in a way it's kind of like that, but just like unintentionally. I'm nervous about this video a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. I'm just here to deliver the message, you know? But yeah, that's basically it, y'all. It's not much of a story time, but more so, yeah. I wasn't gonna tell it, but I'm like, no, I need to tell this. If you guys want more information on it, she said that there's a lot of like stories that she thinks that she knows of people that have been there and have been victims. Like, she feels she can definitely send a list of things that you guys should probably look out for if you guys are gonna go, but she highly suggests that you you know what, I'm gonna just end it here. I love you. Don't forget to tell me what you were eating in the comments. Don't forget to get your ebook if you're gonna go over there. Okay, I love you. Bye.
Welcome back to another episode of Tea After Midnight. Just a little series where we have some tea to keep it nice and classy, but I also tell you scary stories. And tonight's story comes with a picture that has me absolutely unsettled. So grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Kay. Hi Savannah, I hope this email finds you well. I really enjoy your videos and I wanted to share something that happened to me last year. I've never been someone who fears or even believes in paranormal experiences. That only started to change when my mom began taking courses to become a shaman. She has always claimed to sense or see things, but I never believed her. I assumed it was just her mind playing tricks. That is until things started happening in our home. At first it was only my mom experiencing these things. One night while she was home alone, she said she heard loud footsteps moving back and forth between our bedrooms from downstairs, which are right next to each other. It frightened her so much that she ended up sleeping on the sofa downstairs. Another time, she was standing in the hallway near the front door, facing a mirror. The downstairs bathroom was behind her. In the mirror, she noticed something in her peripheral vision. Something she described as human, but distorted, almost like it had a strange filter over it. When she focused on it, a painting I had made, one that had been hanging in the same spot for months, suddenly fell. Because of where it landed, it blocked the bathroom door completely. At the time, I brushed it off as a coincidence, assuming she was overthinking things because of her course. But then things started happening to me. It only ever occurred at night, after I had fallen asleep. I would wake up suddenly in a panic with thoughts that didn't feel like my own, almost as if someone was speaking directly into my mind. The thoughts were extremely vivid and specific. For example, I would wake up thinking, there is something sitting under your desk. It has long limbs and a long neck. It's smiling and it wants you to be afraid. Do not let it know you're awake. I would lie there completely frozen, pretending to be asleep, absolutely convinced that something was in my room. These episodes happened every single night. On top of that, the room would feel like it was spinning, similar to the sensation of lying down while extremely drunk. This took a serious toll on me, both mentally and physically. I struggled in college because I was barely sleeping. There were times I went 2 or 3 days without sleep, not because I wasn't tired, but because I was too afraid to fall asleep. The final incident was the most intense. One night at around 3:20 a.m., I had been downstairs in the living room binge watching The Office. I went upstairs to grab my phone charger, and to get upstairs you have to pass through our long kitchen. At the far end, there's a couch. In the middle is the entrance to the living room where I was, and at the other far end, the hallway door, which was where I needed to go. After getting my charger, I walked back down into the kitchen. The kitchen lights were off, and when I looked down the far end, I suddenly see a figure standing upright on the couch at the far end. It was too dark to make out any features, but I was certain in the moment it was a person. We stood there for what felt like a full minute, just staring at each other, until it leaped off the couch and sprinted toward me. I ran as fast as I could back into the living room, barely managing to slam the door shut. I called my mom in a panic and crying, convinced there was someone in the house trying to attack me. While on the phone, I turned on the living room light so I could see into the kitchen. I grabbed one of the fireplace tools for protection and slowly went back to turn on the kitchen lights. There was nothing there. I searched the entire house, but still, no one was there. I checked every door and they were all locked. There was no way somebody got into the house. Plus, I live in a very small village in the middle of nowhere. At the time, I didn't even think of this as paranormal because of how real and vivid it felt. I later drew what I had been seeing and showed it to a woman my mom brought in to cleanse the house. Forewarning, I'm inserting the picture now. When she saw the drawing, she said it looked exactly like what she had sensed was inside the house after walking through the house. She even got chills at how accurately I had drawn it. After she cleansed the house, everything stopped. None of us have experienced anything like it since. So there are definitely a few things that I want to touch on this story. The first one's going to be when you would go to sleep, and every single night this happened, you would go to sleep, but you would wake up in a panic, feeling like somebody had spoke something to you, and you woke up and it was extremely vivid and specific. Like you said, for example, you would wake up thinking there is something sitting under your desk. It had long limbs and a long neck. It's smiling and it wants you to be afraid. Do not let it know you're awake. I have chills just reading that, because what do you mean that you would wake up and you would think something that specific, that something with a long neck, long limbs is under your desk, it's smiling at you, I've got chills again, and it wants you to be afraid, so don't let it know that you're awake. That absolutely sends chills down my spine. My whole body is in full chills right now. But this didn't just happen one night. This kept repeatedly happening. And I'm so sorry you went through that, because I don't even know what I would do the first time that would happen. I wouldn't know what to do. But to feel that way, I can just imagine the pure terror that you felt every night that you woke up. But next, let's talk about this picture right here. This picture is pure evil. Looking at this, it has me so unsettled right now. I don't even know what this is. If anybody in the comments knows, please let us know. But this just looks like pure, absolute evil. And I absolutely could not imagine being in your position, seeing this thing, not only just seeing it, but it then running at you. But looking at this, it just absolutely sends shivers down my spine and it freaks me out. And I'm so sorry that you saw that. But I really hope that you're not seeing it now. From the story, it sounded like after the house was cleansed that you haven't had any more experiences. So I pray that stays the same way. I do want to say thank you so much for sending in your story. But again, I am so sorry that you went through that. And if anybody in the comments has any idea of what this thing in the picture is, please let us know. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. But as always, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the best night. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Let's read another scary Reddit story. In November 2022, since I'm obviously way too inexperienced to go on a camping trip in the Ozark forest, my mom, brother, fiance, and I took a trip up to Mountain View, Arkansas for my birthday. I really wanted to see the fall leaves instead of the traditional boring old Texas fall season. We got settled into the Airbnb, then around nightfall decided we wanted to go get some wine and beer for my birthday. Come to find out, it's a dry county. My fiance and I took the car and mapped out the next town over. My mom and brother stayed behind. The route we took had us take a dark road behind the Ozark forest, the moonlight hitting the trees against the road and no light pollution in sight. My fiance decided to park the car and turn it off so we can experience the darkness and how it would feel when we go camping out in the Ozark forest. About 3 minutes later, I tell him to turn on the car and decide it's not for me, no matter how hard I convince myself. It's pretty spooky and yet gorgeous. We are about 35 minutes into the drive and finally make it to the liquor store. Creepy town at night. and the town looked like it was off of Silent Hill or House of a Thousand Corpses, so quiet and very unfamiliar to me. We grab our drinks and get back in the car, and I'm driving this time. About 25 minutes into the drive back, we are literally losing our minds because the low fuel light came on and we had zero cell phone reception. Freaking out about how to tell my mom and brother we are stranded. Shocker, we are driving in the gas-guzzling 4Runner. We made it past the Ozark Forest Road, and the roads start to look familiar again. We drove around a curve, and what I saw, I truly can't make sense of it. It drives me crazy. I could live with it and play the whole my mind plays tricks on me, etc., except my fiancé saw it too. As we were driving around the curve, we saw an old woman's body with her head resting against the tree and her hand in front of it, in all white. Her body looked like it had morphed with the tree, as if she was camouflaged. After I saw the figure, I knew I saw something and it wasn't my mind. I asked my fiancé if he saw it too. He said yes, and I made him describe what he saw. He said he saw an old lady in the forest against the tree. I decided to turn the car around and drive back around the curve, and of course we didn't see it again. Once we drove around 2 more times to see if we saw it again, the low fuel indicator dinged again, reminding me we are nearly out of freaking gas. I booked it to the gas station, thanking God Almighty himself that we finally made it to the Walmart gas station. When we got back to the Airbnb, I 100% didn't feel like drinking then. I was ready to drive back home. I would have never thought to post this here. However, I can't find anything online, maps, etc. that could explain what we saw. I was thinking a paranormal ghost, witch, something else. Anyone have any similar experiences in Arkansas? Please tell me if you have seen anything similar or know of what we could have possibly seen.
What would you do if your husband came home from work early and sat down at the kitchen table, but then you get a call from your real husband? This is Scared with Jess, and today's story is about a woman who said that something came into her house, but it wasn't her husband. I was making dinner when I heard the front door open. At first, that didn't bother me. My husband had texted earlier saying work was busy, though every now and then he'd get out early. It happened. I was at the stove, half paying attention to the pasta, half thinking about whether we still had enough garlic bread for both of us, and when I heard his shoes in the hallway, I called out, "You're home early." He didn't answer. That was the first thing that got under my skin. Usually he'd respond right away. Even if he was tired, even if he was in a mood, he'd say something. And this time I just heard a pause and then one quiet, flat, "Yeah." I turned around and he was standing in the kitchen doorway looking at me. The same work shirt and the same face, but something still in me tightened up. He didn't come over, he didn't kiss my cheek, he didn't drop his bag by the wall like he usually does. He just stood there watching me like he was trying to remember what I'd look like from that angle. I laughed a little because I felt silly for even noticing and said, "Everything okay?" He asked, "Did anyone call today?" I said no. And then he asked, "Did you unlock the back door?" I remember blinking at him because the question was so strange. I said, "What?" He asked again in the same voice and same expression. I said, "No, I hadn't." Then he said, "Did you tell anyone I live here?" That was when my stomach dropped. I asked him what he was talking about, and he didn't answer. He came into the kitchen, pulled out a chair, and sat at the table. He folded his hands in front of him and looked at me. I turned the stove off, and I didn't think about it. I just did it. Then my phone rang. I looked down at the screen, and the blood left my face. It was my husband. At the table, the thing wearing him smiled. I answered the call with my hand shaking so hard I nearly lost the grip on my phone. And he said, "Hey, I'm leaving now. I should be home in 20. I couldn't speak. Then he said, "Why are you whispering?" I looked over at the kitchen table, and it was still sitting there in his chair with that same little smile, waiting. I said as quietly as I could, "If you're not home, who is sitting in my kitchen?" He went silent, and I could hear traffic behind him for a second. Then he said, sharp enough to cut right through me, "What?" The thing at the table stood up slowly. It never broke eye contact with me. Then it turned and walked towards the stairs. I watched it go because I could not make my legs work. It moved like it knew the house, like it had already been there a while. My husband kept saying my name through the phone, and I finally whispered, "It's going upstairs." That stopped him. I heard his car door slam on his end. Then he said, "Get out of the house right now." I still wasn't moving. He shouted it again louder, "Get out right now." From upstairs, I heard footsteps begin, heavy and slow, one after another above my head. I backed towards the front door without taking my eyes off the staircase. I asked him, "If that's not you, who is upstairs?" He was quiet for a second, and then he said, "I left the attic ladder down this morning." I ran. I didn't take my purse, I didn't grab my keys from the hook, I just yanked the front door open and bolted barefoot across the yard to my neighbor's porch. I was pounding on their door, and my husband got there in maybe 10 minutes. He went in first, and my neighbor went with him. They checked every room, but nobody was there. The attic ladder was down. That part was true. Nothing in the attic either, at least not that they found. Just insulation in boxes and some old Christmas stuff that we keep up there. My husband kept asking if I was sure I hadn't fallen asleep or mixed something up or had somebody come by who left before he got there. I didn't blame him for trying to make sense of it. I would have done the same thing. But on the kitchen table, right where that thing had been sitting, there was a damp handprint. And when my husband pushed the attic ladder back up, something moved across the top of it. Definitely wasn't a rat or settling wood. I mean, it was a shift of weight. He stopped with both hands still on the ladder and looked up into the opening. I saw his face change. He pulled the ladder shut fast enough to make the ceiling shake. We stayed in a hotel that night, and he still doesn't talk much about what he thought he saw up there, which tells me he did see something. I also never told him one part. When I was standing in the kitchen with him on the phone and that thing was walking towards the stairs, it passed the hall mirror, and for a second I could see its reflection. It was still my husband's body, but the face wasn't his anymore. Anyway, good luck sleeping tonight.
So this happened to the girl's family members. It didn't necessarily happen to her, but wait till you fucking hear this. Apparently this happened really close to where she lives because it happened to her auntie. So this girl had an aunt who really wanted to have a daughter, but unfortunately, is it unfortunate? She had all boys. She had an aunt who really wanted to have a girl, but she only ended up having boys. That's what I should have said to begin with. She always desired to have a daughter. She wished she had a daughter, and I guess because she didn't have a daughter, she did end up buying herself a doll. So her niece, who's telling us the story, says that when she bought this doll, she treated this doll like if it was her daughter, and she loved this doll so much, and she would even tell every family member that she loved it. She would shower the doll, she would take the doll everywhere that she would go, and she really did treat the doll like another member of the family. So there was one day where the youngest son ends up getting really sick. He is bedridden for like 3 days, and she would tend to him. So because of this, she ended up leaving the doll right next to him in bed. So on the 4th day where he has been in bed with his mom and the doll, she wakes up around 3 in the morning with this little boy screaming at the top of his lungs. She immediately turns the light on and she sees that her son is on the floor and he's holding on to his throat and he's coughing really bad. And at the same time that he's doing this, he then starts pointing to the door. When the mom walks towards the door, all she sees is that the doll is laying right in front of the door, just there. When she sees that the doll is laying there, the first instinct that the mom has is to get mad at the kid because obviously he had been playing with the doll, and the kid starts denying that. He's like, no, and walks to the doll and starts kicking the doll. She was choking me. Your doll was choking me is what the boy says to his mom. His mom started laughing and grabbed the doll, put the doll by her side, and just went to lay down. Obviously she didn't believe when he said that the doll was choking him. She thought it was a joke. clock. Now, the crazy shit about this was that the days would go by and the rest of the other sons started to say the same thing about the doll. The boys claimed that they would see when the doll would get up and start walking towards them in bed, and that the doll would even talk to them because she would threaten them. The kids claimed that this doll would tell them that she was gonna kill them. And whenever they would tell their mom, this girl's auntie, she wouldn't believe them because she thought that they were just jealous of the doll, like because she had been treating this doll really well, that maybe they were acting out because of that. So on one particular night, the mom ends up being awoken because she thought she heard like weird sounds, but she didn't end up getting out of bed. She laid there and she actually tried to just go back to sleep. But that was when she felt something really weird and she kind of opened her eyes just a little bit. What she saw was this doll climbing up to get into bed with her. You know, where she was when she first went to sleep, where she should be when she opened her eyes and got awoken. Well, now she's seeing this doll trying to get on the bed with her. This doll was obviously trying to climb back into bed with her to lay in the spot where she was always laying and had her sleeping next to her. The aunt closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep, and then she decided that she was gonna move a little bit just to see what the doll would do. And she said that she just moved one of her legs and that this doll just threw herself on the bed, like Andy's coming type shit. Now the mom, she couldn't help herself anymore. She could not pretend to be asleep. She jumps out of bed, she turns on the light, she wakes up her husband and tells him what she just saw. You're a liar. You just wanted to play with your doll in the middle of the night. Her husband should have been like, you're lying. You're just playing with her. No, so she dead ass grabs the doll that was like pretending to be asleep now, throws her bitch ass to the floor and tells her husband everything that she had just seen. The husband grabs that doll, they both go outside and they burn it, and they ended up throwing it in the trash can. Now the following day, they actually end up seeing this doll. She reappeared in their yard, and obviously she's looking a little bit scarier being that she was burned. They end up calling a priest, and he comes, he blesses the house, and this priest ends up leaving with this doll. The aunt actually had to move from that house because after everything occurred, she would now end up seeing a woman at the foot of her bed. And they didn't just move like they got their no, they left everything that they owned in this house. It was almost like they just did it quickly. Her and her husband grabbed the kids and they left with nothing. They wanted to leave everything in that house. They didn't want to take anything with them. She ends up going to her sister's house because before they left the town, they stopped to tell them everything that happened just so that they wouldn't go to that house or anywhere near it. And as a matter of fact, the girl telling us the story was 9 years old at the time when she heard everything that happened there. Her aunt, till this day, has one, not returned to that town, fuck that, and two, has never gotten close to another doll again. I wish you would have listened when your kids were telling you, but I guess that's cool though. I want to ask why parents don't listen, but my mom also didn't, and now that I'm an adult, she would say it's because she was scared too, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, even though I'm an adult, I would be fucking scared if I had a kid come and be like, oh, the doll choked me. What? I mean, I would leave immediately. I would believe immediately. I would do something immediately, but yeah, I would be scared too. Like, you don't send me back to my room after I tell you that. What the fuck? Anyway, what do you guys do, or what do you guys think about this story?
Scariest story by far that I've ever read, and it's from the Appalachian Mountains. So let's get into it. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and I actually have an email where anyone finds this page can send me their ghost stories. In all honesty, I do get a lot of emails, and I have to say without a doubt the scariest ones that I've ever gotten are from the Appalachian Mountains, and this is one of them. The story comes from Bella, who says that her and her family moved to the Appalachian Mountains when she was about 14 in 2019. So the rules of the Appalachian land were not existent for any of them in their family. As Bella attends her first week of school, she meets two girls, Brooke and Sarah. They hit it off almost immediately, and after a couple of Snapchats here and there throughout the weeks, they decide they want to have a sleepover. Now, for context purposes, the way that the land is set up on this property is there's Bella's house, and then there is like a line of trees that outline the backyard. And that is what separates the property lines between Bella's yard and her neighbors. So we're not talking about like a normal fence line. We're talking about the fence line being a forested, wooded area. On the day of the sleepover, they all carpool home with Bella to her house. And the moment that they get to Bella's house, they start deciding on what they want to do for the night. Sarah immediately says that she wants to wander around the woods and tell scary stories. Bella agrees, and Brooke is a little hesitant because of what the locals have been saying about the woods. And when they asked their friend to explain, Brooke just said, I don't know, the locals said that it's dangerous to walk around the woods at night. Both Bella and Sarah are like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I've never heard of anything in my life that sounds like that. And they just kind of dismiss her. Now, upon nightfall, they follow the trail down to the wooded area. They bring some alcohol and some recreational items and decide to make a little party out of it. Eventually, they stumble across this little church in the middle of the woods and decide that is their camp for the night. As they're sitting on the stairs of this church, they are just talking, hanging out, when all of a sudden, Sarah needs to go to the bathroom. So she gets up and she walks around the side of the building. And after a couple of minutes of dead silence, Sarah comes sprinting back and says, "We need to go. We need to go right now." Both of the other girls are like, "What are you talking about? We just got here. We're having a good time. What's going on?" Sarah does not explain, and she says, "We just need to go. We need to go." So all three of them pack up and they head back to Bella's house. Now, it's important to note that they left the bottle of alcohol that they were drinking at the church because they were all kind of spooked after Sarah came back breathless and telling them that they needed to go. After they're back at Bella's house, Sarah explains that she, in fact, saw a pair of eyes watching her from the woods, and then proceeds to tell the girls that they need to lock all the windows and close the blinds. And she continuously tries to say, I tried telling you guys that the woods were dangerous. There's a reason why there's rules out here in the Appalachian Mountains. This isn't a joke. And right as she's explaining why they don't go into the woods, they hear a tap at the window. And it is loud enough where they all stop talking and kind of look at the window that is closed by the curtains. And as the silence ensues in the room, they hear another tap. This time the tap is loud enough where they all get so startled that they just leave the bedroom and move into the living room area where they didn't cover the window. And as they are all sitting in the living room, Sarah begins to cry out of pure fear. Obviously, with the window still being open, Brooke gets up to go close the blinds and immediately screams upon standing up. And when Bella is like, what happened? All Brooke could say was that she saw what Sarah was talking about. There was a woman standing at the property line. And obviously we're not talking about a normal looking human being. This woman was pale, emaciated, with jet black hair, and was standing at the property line looking directly at the girls through the window. At which point all the girls start joining hands and praying, eventually falling asleep after a while. They all wake up and Bella is the first one awake, walks outside, and the very first thing that she sees at her doorstep is a bottle of alcohol, the same bottle of alcohol that they left at the church, sitting at her front door. It's important to note that Bella says that this bottle of alcohol looked like it was drugged through the mud. She picked it up with a napkin, tossed it into the trash bin, and did not tell the other girls about it. A year after this incident, Bella and her family decided to sell their home in the Appalachian Mountains and move back to Cincinnati. She never told anything to her parents out of sheer fear because I don't think her parents really knew about the rules of the Appalachian Mountains either. But her, Sarah, and Brooke are all still very close, and they all remember the story very vividly. And from a personal perspective, I don't know how people exist up there because every story that I have heard of has been absolutely terrifying, especially if it's in the Appalachian Mountains. But anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
Let's talk about why I tell people to not play with Ouija boards. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and a lot of the time on my page, I talk about other people's experiences. However, I have a lot of my own. And if you've been here for a long time, then you've probably heard this story, or if you listen to any of the podcasts that I'm on, you've probably heard this story. But I think it's important to revisit it because I am a very strong advocate on not messing with that thing specifically, and it's because of my experience. And before I get comments flooding into my everything, I know I should have listened to my mom, okay? I know that now. But let's get into it. When I was a freshman in high school, I and my friend decided to make a Ouija board and play it in my room. You may be asking yourself, why did you make it? Because I've come to find out that when you make things with intention, it is worse. And if y'all are unaware, Toys R Us, when it was a thing, you could buy a Ouija board at Toys R Us. You can buy Ouija boards at a lot of toy stores or novelty stores, which is very scary in retrospect, but I digress. So, this person I was around had already experienced a lot of things with ghosts. I had only seen one, and I was almost certain that it was just a family member. So we shut off the lights. I had this little table sitting over there, and we put the Ouija board, I put the planchette on, we lit a candle, and we put a small piece of silver on the corner.
And we're asking dumb questions like, who are you? How old are you? You know, whatever. And the planchette is moving, but it feels so strong that I'm convinced it's her pushing it. And it's answering normally. Like, I don't remember the answers to that, but I do remember the answer to this one. I got fed up with the planchette moving so quickly that I asked the board something that my friend wouldn't know. And I proceeded to ask it, if you're so real, what is my grandfather's middle name? So when my grandfather passed, I am almost certain that we did not put his middle name on his obituary because nobody knew that. And that was like something within my family that we did not share, etc. There were 5 letters in his middle name. The planchette stopped moving when I asked the question. We sat there for probably 15 seconds and I was like, this is fake. I knew you were pushing it. And as I'm saying that, it starts moving. It goes to the first letter and it's right. It goes to the second letter and it is right. It goes to the third letter. And as it's heading for the third, I take my hands off. I know, big no-no. And I am absolutely horrified. It finished spelling his middle name. And afterwards, I put my hands back on, we said goodbye, I blew the candle out, and we just went on our merry way because that was too much. Now, the backyard at my parents' house is set up where we have a lot of shrubbery and tall trees. And after our session with the Ouija board, we decided to do something that we thought would be fun, which is taking photos in my backyard. And it's important to note that the room that I had at my parents' house in the basement, the window in the room faced out towards the backyard. And as we were taking photos against this shrubbery, I had my back faced away from the window. My mom is the only one home, and as I'm taking pictures of my friend, we hear, we both turn around, we don't see any movement. My parents' room was right above where I lived, so I'm convinced it's my mom messing with me. I run inside, I go upstairs, I fly through her door, and she is asleep. I wake her up, and she does the mom thing where she's like, you know, and I'm like, why did you scare us? She had no idea what I was talking about. And for a long time, I was like, no, I know it was you because you told us not to do that, and blah, 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 blah. Ratted myself out, and she immediately was like, I did not mess with you. And I will get into how I know it wasn't her. The following month after this happened was the scariest month I can possibly think that I had activity in my house. So a week after we played with this board, my sister burst into my room at 6 a.m. and she's like, I have something to talk to you about, and I don't know what it was. Okay, weird, because my sister usually sleeps until noon, and she's up at 6 a.m. willingly, and she says she has something to tell me because she doesn't know what it was. I immediately have a weird feeling. She begins to tell me how she essentially astral projected out of her body and was looking at herself sleep through her window, which is on a slope at my parents' house. And she saw something leaning over her body. When she woke up, my dog was gristled up, teeth showing, snarling, growling, and barking at the corner in the middle of the night. And I compartmentalized that, right? I didn't tell her about the board. I didn't tell her what we did. I didn't tell her anything. I just said, you know, this is probably just a nightmare. I think it was just whatever. Because I didn't want to scare her. The week after that, so we're 2 weeks post Ouija board session. And my parents are out of town in Colorado, and my sister is at my cousin's house staying the night. So I was home alone, and there's a little note to me as a person. I don't like the dark. And this particular night, I felt so comfortable walking in the dark. It was really weird. The only light source, I was shutting all the lights off for the night. The only light source was coming from my room. So there's the big doorway of just light. Next to my room is this built-in bar area. I'm walking through the dark. I'm pretty much in the doorway of light at this point. And I hear, whoa. Whoa. That was really weird. I hear, hey, right next to my ear. Ran into my room, barricaded the door, and I did not come out until my sister came home the next day. And don't get me wrong, I've heard weird stuff at my house before. I have never heard anything or anyone talk to me, and I was the only one home. And the last thing that happened to me was not necessarily a situation. I always felt like there was someone in my room. I always felt like there was someone either standing outside my window, like my sister dreamt about her doing, or I always felt like there was someone in my closet. And yes, that's a very common thing, but it was so prevalent that I felt like I was going to walk into my closet and there was going to be a human being there. And at the time, I started working at a church, and I started praying, and slowly but surely, it went away, and I have not experienced anything in my house that was relative to that since. I'm also a firm believer that if you are trying to mess with these things and try to provoke these things, they will catch you off guard. I am a firm believer of that. So I've had experiences since then that were related to paranormal activity, but nothing related to that, and I know because I could feel it. So that is why I don't mess with those anymore. I don't think I will ever touch another one ever. And in my story about the museum, that is what made me extremely nauseous, and I'm convinced it was because there was something attached to the board. But just do anything else. There are so many different things that you can do to try and see activity. Don't do that. I'm also a firm believer that those just open up whatever door to wherever and whoever wants to answer first. Like the talk to me hand, that is what I think of. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.